We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Chesam and Aleph Meseches Zevachim. This is Zevachim Daf 78a. The Mishnah continues. Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ein dam mevatel dam." Blood cannot nullify blood. Rabbi Yehuda is arguing with the Tanakama from the previous Amud. The Tanakama said that if you have blood of kachim and it mixes with blood of chulin, so then it is possible that the blood is going to be nullified and it will not be able to be used for zrika sadam, for the application of the blood to the mizbeach. And Rabbi Yehuda is saying that's not the case. Blood is not able to nullify blood, and the blood therefore still can be used for application on the Mizbeach. And the Mishnah continues, Nesarev b'dam psulin. Let's say the blood gets mixed with blood, but it's disqualified blood. Rashi explains, b'dam psulin kagon biroveya v'nirba. For example, you have an animal involved in bestiality, or b'nishchat chutz lizman, or chutz l'makom, or maybe it was slaughtered outside of the proper time, or outside of the proper place. So if it gets mixed with dam psulin, says the Mishnah, yishafech lo amma, so then the blood has to be poured to the stream that carries it outside of the Beis HaMikdash. And Rashi explains, Yishavech le'ama v'afilu hakosher rabba olav, even if the majority is kosher blood, v'chein b'dam hatamsis, and also by dam hatamsis, which we're about to see in the Mishnah, Yishavech le'ama, you have to pour that out to the stream, v'afa b'shadam hanefesh rabba olav, even though the soul blood, which is the blood that's actually used for the zrika, the dam hatamsis is the blood that comes out, that is not the soul blood, it's not the main blood that is gushing out, so to speak, at the time of the shechita. So even though the dam hanefesh, even though the soul blood is the majority, still it needs to be poured la'ama, umishum gezeira k'nemefarish beGemara. Rashi explains this is a gezeira, it's because of a decree of the Rabbanan, as the Gemara will explain. And the Mishnah continues again, if it was mixed with a dam psulin, it's poured to the yama, and b'dam hatamsis, if it's mixed with dam hatamsis also, yishafech liyam, it is poured to the stream. Rabbi Eliezer machshir, Rabbi Eliezer says it's kosher. Rashi explains, Rabbi Eliezer machshir, taimah mefarish beGemara. Rabbi Eliezer's reason will be explained in the Gemara. Imlo nimlach v'nasan, and the Mishnah says, let's say the person didn't ask a question, and he did apply the blood, so then kosher, then it is kosher. And Rashi explains, Imlo nimlach v'nasan kosher, it means afilu l'tanakama, even according to the Tanakama, who said that it was disqualified, but if the person already did it, it will be kosher. Da'afilu l'chatchila ilav misham gezeira haya machshir, because even l'chatchila, if not for the gezeira, as Rashi just mentioned, it really would be kosher. This is all because of gezeira. And so therefore, if the person didn't ask the question and did apply the blood, it would in fact be kosher. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Chia bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Lo shanu ela shenaflu mayim l'soch dam. The Mishnah is talking in a situation where water falls into the blood. Aval nafal dam l'soch mayim. But let's say blood falls into the water. So then rishon batel. Then as it's falling in, since the blood falls in a little bit at a time, every little bit of blood that falls in is going to be nullified, even if at the end the blood is visible. Again, the Mishnah said that if the blood is visible, so then it's still kosher. But says Rabbi Yochanan over here that if the blood falls into the water, so it's going to be nullified as it falls in. So even if it's visible, it is going to be nullified and one will not be able to use it. Rashi explains, Lo shanu dim yesh bo maris dam kosher. The Mishnah only said that if it looks like blood, it's kosher. V'yafagav deru b'mayim, even though it's majority water. Ela shenaflu mayim l'soch dam. That's only if the water fell into the blood. But again, if the blood falls into the water, that's going to be rishon batel. It's going to be batel as it falls in. It's going to be nullified as it falls in, and it's more problematic. And the Gemara continues, Amar Papa says, U'le'inyan kisui, when it comes to kisui, this is talking about the mitzvah to cover the blood when an animal is slaughtered, kisui hadam, ein okain, that is not the case, lefisha ein dichoy b'mitzvahs, because by mitzvahs you don't have this concept of dichoy, of getting pushed off. And Rashi explains, U'le'inyan kisui detnan beinami ki agavna, when it comes to kisui adam, we have a similar Mishnah to our Mishnah. It says, Nesarev b'mayim, it says that if the blood is mixed with water, im yesh bo maris dam, if it looks like blood, chayiv l'chasos, you have to cover it up. Beperakisoi hadam, this is in Perakisoi hadam, in Meseches Chulin. So einochein, it's not the same by kisoi hadam, meaning tiafilu nasan dam l'soch mayim, even if the blood goes into the water, im yesh bo maris dam chayiv l'chasos, there, if it looks like blood, one is going to be obligated to cover it. V'lo amrinan kama batalei, we don't say that as it goes in, as each drop goes in, it's nullified. And Rashi continues, Lefisha ein dichoy b'mitzvahs. The reason why Kisui Adam is different is because there's no concept of dichoy, of getting pushed off by mitzvahs. Di'afa pisha nidche tipo rishona shenafal asoch hamayim. Even though that first drop of blood that fell in, it was pushed off. V'lo haya marisa nikar, and so it wasn't visible, so therefore it was pushed off from the mitzvah of Kisui Adam. Afilu achi, nevertheless, ki hadar nafal tipa shnia. When the second drop falls in, chozeres rishona v'neyor lehitzdarif ima. So that first drop, it wakes up, so to speak, and is able to combine with it. And when it keeps falling in until the water turns to the color of blood, so it reappears in terms of the mitzvah of kisoi. We don't say once it got pushed off, it got pushed off. No, there is an idea of reawakening. Because dichoy is only shayach, it's only relevant by something involving kedusha, involving holiness. It is not relevant by mitzvos. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Amar Reish Lakish says, Hapigul v'hanosar v'hatame, pigul and nosar, and some take out the word tame over here. If you have pigul and nosar shebulolon ezeb ozeh, that they mix with one another, v'yachlan, and he eats them potter, he is going to be potter. In that case, he'll be exempt. Why? Because it's impossible that one of the types is not going to be majority over the other type. And there's going to be nullification, but we don't know which one is nullified, and so therefore, since either one might be the one that's nullified, he ends up being completely exempt. He ends up being potter. And Rashi explains, they get mixed with one another, meaning kazayas mizeh, he has a kazayas from this one, again, pigul and nosar, kazayas mizeh, and a kazayas from the other one. V'nasan l'soch piv, and then he puts it into his mouth, potter mi malchus, he's going to be potter from malchus. V'afilu hisrubo, even if there was a warning, he is going to be potter from malchus. And Rashi continues, it's impossible that one type will not be the majority over the other, meaning when he's chewing it with his mouth, they'll get mixed with one another. You'll have a minority of this one mixing with a majority of the other one. And then you're going to have a situation where the minority is nullified in the majority. Now whatever is batal is going to get added on to what was being mevatel, what was doing the nullifying, and it's going to be called by that name. V'nigra mimino, it's actually going to subtract from that particular type. V'yavshel lechavein shelo yehe mimin ha'echad batal b'chavero yos mimasha batal mimin chavero bo, and it's impossible to figure out, to determine which one is going to be batal more than the other one. V'nimtza she'ein bo so min kashir, so it's going to come out that in whichever type you're not going to have the minimum shear. De batzer le shiure, each one might have too little, might have too small a shear. We don't know which one is the one that's missing the shear. And so therefore, when we warn the individual, we don't know what to warn him for. Are we warning him for nosar? Are we warning him for pigul? The halach is you need to warn him with, and you need to specify the isser. Therefore, if he's going to warn him for pigul, if they warn him about pigul, that's a hasra that's out of a doubt. Maybe that's not the obligation. And the same if they issue the warning by nosar. Now, even though at the end, obviously one of them is going to be a transgression, but at the time of the warning, it was a doubt. It's a doubt whether he really will transgress that, imlo or if not. And hasra that's given in a doubt is not considered a warning, and that's why Reish Lakish says over here that the individual is potter. And the Gemara continues and says, Shma Mina Tlos, we see from here three things from this halacha. Number one, Shma Mina, we see from here, Isurin Mevatlin Zeh, that you have Isurin, you have prohibitions, they can nullify one another, as we see right here, that the pigul and the nosar, they can nullify one another. Ushma Mina Nosein Tam Berov Lav Doraisa. We also see from here that, let's say it imparts a taste, but it's imparting a taste on something else that is the majority, meaning the minority is imparting a taste on the majority, that would not be a doraisa violation. If that was a doraisa violation, then even if it would be the minority, but if the taste is there, so then that would be a problem on a doraisa level. You see, that's not doraisa. Ushma minon, we also see hasra safik lo shma hasra, that a warning that's issued, but it's a situation of a doubt, as Rashi just said, that is not called a warning. And Rashi explains, Shema Mina, Isurin mevatlin zeh. You see from here that Isurin nullify one another. Kiechi deheter mevatel Isur, just like something that is mutter can be mevatel, something that is prohibited. V'lo amrinan Isur lo mevatel Isur. We don't say, maybe one would say that Isur cannot be mevatel Isur. Heter can be mevatel Isur, but maybe one would say Isur cannot be mevatel Isur. That's not true. We see that Isur can be mevatel Isur. Ushmam, we also see nosen tam barov lav doraisa, that if it imparts taste, but if it's against the majority, that's not a problem at a doraisa level. The Rabbanan always say this idea of no sein tam, that if it imparts a taste in heter, it prohibits it. Even though the majority is heter, lav doraisa lilkos olav, that which the Rabbanan say, that's not doraisa, and there wouldn't be malchus there. The doraisa, because if it was doraisa, nihinami derava min al chaveru, even if we understood that one type was majority over the other, mikol makom time yav, but still there's a taste being imparted. Vika time or the shir shalom, you do have a taste of a full shir. Vikasal kadai dechashta, and Rashi explains, right now we think deafilu pickle v'noser mi beis minim. We're talking even where the pickle and the noser are from two different types of food. Shetaimo shal zen nikr bazeh, so the taste you can taste one within the other. You're able to recognize those tastes, and we think right now nami pater l'reish lakish. We think that we would say pater according to Reish Lakish. That's why we're saying over here that no sein tam must not be doraisa. Could go in high basar, high shiori mincha. For example, let's say the mixture, one was meat and one was the remainder of a carbon mincha. So that would be a case where, again, they're each imparting taste to the other. And if we said that was doraisa, so then even if there was bittul, even if you had majority, that really wouldn't be batel, because you'd have the taste being imparted. So it must be that lav doraisa, no sein tam barov, is not doraisa. And the Gemara continues, Mesiv Rava asks a question from a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah Meseches Chala. Also, isa min chitin min orez. Let's say somebody makes dough from wheat and from rice. Im yesh ba tam dagan. If it has a taste of dagan, of grain, if it has that taste of the wheat, chayeves bechala, then it's obligated in chala. Apparently, the Mishnah is saying v'afagav deruba orez. Even though the majority is rice, but still apparently imparting taste is something on a doraisa level. The Gemara says that's not a proof midrabanan. Maybe the Mishnah just means that it's chayev and chala on a derabanan level. But the Gemara says, if so, Ema Seifa, look at the end of the Mishnah. It says, Adam Yotze Boyedei Chovas Pesach, that a person can fulfill his obligation on Pesach. That certainly seems to be a doraisa. Rashi explains, Hachi Garcina Naso Isaso Min Chitinu Min Haorez V'Adam Yotze B'Yidei Chovaso Shall Asay Dekum Echol Matzah B'Pesach. There's an asay, a positive commandment to eat matzah on Pesach, and you can fulfill that. V'Nosen Tam Barov Lav Doraisa. So the Gemara is asking, if the imparting of taste against the majority is not doraisa, Hechinofik, how would one fulfill his obligation? Hakaimul and De'ein Yotzen Ela B'Matzah Shimei Chameshes Haminin. The halacha is one only fulfills the obligation of matzah on Pesach if it comes from one of the 5 species of grain. Techsiv lo sochal olav chametz shivas yamim tochal olav matzos devarim haboim lidei chimutz ato yotze b'hen yedei matzah. Items which can become chametz, in those items you can fulfill the mitzvah of matzah. Yotzu elu she'ein boim lidei chimutz ela lidei sirchon, that excludes items that cannot become chametz. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Ches Amud Beis.